All right, so this file has been shared, I believe, with participants or will be through AccessU. I always include this particular slide when I'm sharing PowerPoints just to let people know that there is text in the notes pane and how to access it. I'm free to go? Yeah. Okay, so my name is Laura Hopkins, and I am currently serving at UT Arlington as the Electronic and Information Resources Accessibility Coordinator. I do have a master's in information technology management. I am a member of IAAP, have the CPAC certification. I also have a CAPM certificate from PMI, and I also hold both of the procurement certifications for the state of Texas. I am not an attorney. I am not offering you legal advice. And I'm going to steal from the session I just attended. I am not a doctor. I do not give medical advice of any type. I would like to see a show of hands. How many of you are fairly well versed that this vocabulary is old hat to you? I get one eh. Is there a response from the online participants? Okay. Since I got one, we're going to talk a little bit about those terms. When we're talking about electronic barriers, I want to think about the photograph that is a picture of a man in a wheelchair at the top of some stairs. When you look at a photo like that and you think about, okay, what's the barrier? Historically, when we were talking about medical diagnosis of disabilities, they would say it's the problem is whatever put the person in the chair. Now we have evolved and we know that that is not the problem. The problem are the stairs. The stairs are the barrier to this person. So when we're talking about electronic accessibility, the barriers that we put in people's pathways are things like insufficient color contrast, no headings, unable to use keyboard controls to navigate the communication or the website. That's the problem. And that's what we control. We control the environment. SlidImprove says disability is a mismatch between one's abilities and one's environment. We control the environment. We send the email. We ask them to complete the survey. We develop the website or the software, the EIR. EIR is a Texas term. At the federal level, they call it ICT. The state definition of EIR, I'm sorry, but it's just horrible. I flash it on the screen, it's a full page of text. I've tried diagramming the sentences, it doesn't work. So for me to wrap my head around, well, what is EIR? I put it into 5 buckets. Number 1 is it's hardware, all right? In the federal definition of hardware, at the very end, it says, and keyboards. So it's printers and computers and keyboards and kiosks. Basically, if there's a graphic user interface, it's in scope when we're talking about electronic accessibility, all right? Hardware is part of that. Number 2, it's websites, all right? If you are creating a website, if you're responsible for a website, if you're directing someone to a website, can I see a show of hands if you're higher ed? Almost everyone here is higher ed. So if you are sending your students to a website, hey, go to flashphotography.com if you want your official UTA graduation photographs, then you're responsible for that website being accessible. If you tell a student, go to this website and read this article so you can pass this test, then you're responsible. You are responsible for making sure you are sending students to accessible websites. If customers are coming to you or clients are coming to you, you need to be sure, pardon me, that your website is accessible. Number 3 is it's software, and that includes software as a service. So you're using Question Pro or SurveyMonkey, or you're using Constant Contact or MyEmma. You're responsible to make sure that employees using those resources are accessible. The 4th bucket is kind of the miscellaneous bucket. Your videos, your social media posts, right? Your PDFs, all of your electronic documents and your surveys. And then the fifth bucket are vendor services. So any vendor service that touches any of those other buckets, that's EIR or ICT. And it is required to be accessible. So these are just things that we need to understand. We have common vocabulary when we are talking about our accessibility program. WCAG is a list of success criteria. So to say we're accessible, we have to check off all of the success criteria from WCAG 2.1 levels A and AA. There's a third level AAA, but that is not one of the legal requirements. And that's all that my program can require is compliance to the legal standards. Sometimes people complain to me at work because they say, Laura, you're not happy unless we're fully compliant. I'm like, no, let's reword that. I'm not happy unless we have met the minimum legal requirements. All I'm asking for is the minimum required by law, which is WCAG 2.1, because we're pretending we are already living in the new DOJ rule arena that starts April of next year. A and AA. That's the minimum legal requirement. This is the rest of the list. A VPAT is a template. It's a Word document that vendors fill out that lists all of the WCAG criteria, and we're asking them to tell us, do they support it? Do they partially support it? Or do they not support it? Maybe it's not applicable. If it's not evaluated, that's the same thing as does not support. Now, we have a scorecard at UTA. If you want a copy of it, let me know. I'll send it to you. We score the vendor response. We understand that they are all legally required. It's not optional. But in the real world that we all live in, some of those criteria are more important to us than others. Most devices these days know what language your page is in, if we're talking about going to a website. But if you don't have sufficient color contrast, you're leaving out a potential 1 in 12 people, 8.5% of the adult population. That's a lot. That's an unacceptable number. So if you're telling me, okay, I have the proper language set on every page on this website, but we don't meet the color contrast requirements, I'm unhappy. I need that swapped. Color contrast to me is much more important in that WCAG list than, yeah, we set English as the page on this website. Okay, so I worked through the list with some coworkers that are colorblind. I worked through the list with a student worker who uses JAWS. She's been blind since she was 5. And we prioritized the WCAG criteria into 3 categories: standard, still legally required, but standard, somewhat important, and extremely important. And so when a vendor gets a grade of F on their VPAT, I can say to them, these are the percentage of the populations with disabilities that were impacted by your scorecard. And if you want us to prioritize for you the things we want fixed, here's the list. Okay, so when we're talking about VPATs, that's a vendor provided document, or if we are developing an app ourselves, we have to complete it. And WCAG are the criteria that are listed on the VPAT. And so what it means to be accessible is equal access. We are not putting barriers in people's way. EIR or ICT, those are the 5 buckets. WCAG are the success criteria. VPATs is just a template where vendors report to us if those resources are accessible or not. It's the law. Now, maybe your agency or your company or your school doesn't care that it's the law, but I care. I'm a rules follower. So when they picked me for this position in December of 2018, the person who picked me knew me. I was a buyer, and so we were working with OIT all the time, but I don't think he really knew my personality, the way I was raised. And I was raised that if it starts at 10 o'clock, you get there at 5 till, right? If you're on time, you're late. You have to be there early to be respecting the people that invited you, right? I'm a rules follower. Okay. No, I don't drive the speed limit, but I'm pretty close and I feel guilty. I mean, if I'm 5 miles over, I'm looking for the police because they're going to stop me. They're going to give me a ticket, right? I'm the perfect ERAC because I'm going to tell you, you are not above the law. You are required to obey the law. If we are not, as an agency, following the law, we are failing our students. We are failing our coworkers. We are failing our alumni. The people we're asking to give us money, right? Because I'm a rules follower at heart. How many of you are rules followers? A few of you. Okay. Well, even if you're not, it's still the law. If you break the law, you can have financial penalty, right? ADA Title II allows for financial penalties. Okay, Section 508 doesn't. But that's the Rehabilitation Act. The Americans with Disabilities Act does allow financial penalties. Okay, it's not just the ADA and the Rehabilitation Act. There's lots of laws that have to do with equal access. So if you want to get into that, just do your research. So there's what does the law require today and what does the law require April of next year? Let's just pretend it's April of next year for simplicity's sake. Yes, Marie.
Technically, the law is requiring 2.1 AA now. It's just the deadline to comply is next April.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. What Marie said was that technically the law now does say we have 2.1 because it's already been an effective date, but there's a compliance date that is not until April. So thank you for correcting me. Yes, that is correct. Now, how many of you are from outside of Texas? A few of you. Okay. So I don't know what state or country you're from or what the requirements are for you. So let me talk about Texas people first, just a few minutes. Until that new DOJ rule came into effect, at UT Arlington, our legal counsel advice was, it's all the same. It's all WCAG 2.0 AA. And just follow the state Texas Administrative Code for exceptions. Federal law doesn't really talk about exceptions, so we'll just say we're following our state law, so we're good. DOJ rule changed all that. They now talk about exceptions. So we have state allowed exceptions, a hard line, federally allowed exceptions, and they are apples and oranges. So we may have something that is allowed to be exempt from the rules under DOJ that we still have to process an exception form for the state. Because DOJ only applies to websites, things that are web-based, and mobile applications. So if we have software that's not accessible, we know it's not accessible, we still have to do a Texas exception form for that. Okay, so just be sure you understand that you may be playing in 2 different circuses now. It's not just one and done because there's different requirements. Okay. Okay, it's not just schools. It's not just state agencies. Title III of the ADA expands the requirements. Now, I know there's a lot of lawsuits going on right now about does EIR or ICT really apply to public spaces under Title III. We are operating at UT Arlington as yes, it does. So if we are telling potential employees, go to this hotel, go to this gym, this event, this Texas Rangers stadium, whatever it is, it needs to be accessible. We believe that it's going to play out that it's in scope. Now, that's not black and white. That's not set in stone. There's lawsuits every day to argue this. But, you know, Louisiana, they just lost on their website that they have to be accessible now. And that may be because it's already published, even though the compliance date is not passed yet. Let me ask a question. I'm not going to send the slide backwards, but let's talk about that public accommodations for a minute. One of the sites listed is sporting arenas, stadiums, and such. Those of you at higher ed, how many of you held your commencement at a professional sports place? Like we held ours at Globe Life Field, which is the Texas Rangers place. Y'all held one. Where did you hold yours? At the basketball arena. So which, was it a professional sports team arena? Okay. Anyone else at an arena or stadium? So I had the benefit that my employee graduated this year from our school. So I got to see all of the, hey, to attend commencement, you have to use the MLB.com app. And at first I was like, well, that's probably okay because Title III, right? Guess what? There's some issues. Or you could go to the Texas Rangers website to download your ticket. Well, guess what? There's issues. They have an accessibility email address. I reached out, they opened a ticket and close it. They opened a ticket and closed it. So anyway, Friday, I have a meeting with a deputy litigator with the MLB.com. I'm like, really? I didn't want to talk to legal. I just need someone from the accessibility team to talk to me. She's like, no, I'll talk to you. That's under my purview. Okay. So if any of you have any insight into the MLB.com app, because I am not a native JAWS user or screen reader user, I'd love to have your feedback because I'm meeting with her on Friday. Okay. If you've been to the legal conversations today or listened to the keynote, you already have heard what the exceptions are under DOJ. People are nodding their head. You can have this PowerPoint, so you'll see this. I'm not going to review these again for you because I think a lot of you have already heard these at least twice. Okay, this I've already mentioned because I got ahead of myself. So let's keep going. I think this is why you're really here. How do we get everybody in the boat at our spot? So just throw some names out. Where are y'all from? What is your agency or your school or your company?
Dell.
Dell? I heard someone say Dell. Shepherd University, where's that? West Virginia. Y'all traveled a long ways to the heat of Texas.
Community College of Maryland.
Maryland. Lovely weather. Yes.
I'm from the UT campus in Houston.
UT campus in Houston. You're from UT Tyler. Anybody else want to offer? I'm sorry.
Ohio State.
Ohio State. I've been talking to some lovely people from Ohio State. I don't know if they were Ohio State, but they were Ohio. Sorry. There are other Ohio institutions. Okay. All right. So where you are, how do you get everybody in the boat? And it may be, you know, a couple of hundred people you're talking about, or it may be a couple of thousand people that you're talking about. Or if it's Marie at DIR, you're talking about the whole state of Texas. It's a bunch of people. How do you get them all? How do you get all your ducks in a row, right? And first of all, you just gotta figure out where all your ducks are, you know, and then maybe you just get them where you can see them. All right, there's stages. It's just not snap your fingers and okay, they're all in a row. So let me give you my origin story. Have you ever heard my origin story, Marie? So I was a buyer and there were some changes, some turnover, and we were assigned by department, not by commodity. So I got changed to being the IT buyer. So summer of 2018, nope, yep, that's right. Summer 2018, UT Rio Grande Valley got sued because their website wasn't accessible. They had an OCR complaint filed against them. So that got UT Systems' attention. Whoops, hey everyone, who's your ERAC, EIR Accessibility Coordinator? Because the state of Texas requires every state agency have one. Well, like most institutions in our system, they did not have one. So one of the AVPs in OIT had to take sort of on that role. And one of the things he said is, okay, buyer, I'm going to meet with you once a week and we're going to look at the POs that you're about to dispatch to make sure we're starting to ask for VPATs and that kind of thing. So that meeting was every Monday. But at the same time, there was some ISO stuff going on. So the ISO person said, oh, I want to be on that call too. So every Monday morning we had a call. Well, ISO was late to the call and she said, I'm sorry, I was interviewing someone. And the IT guy said, well, I wish I could interview someone. I can't get anyone to apply for this job. I'm like, what's the job? And he said the name. I'm like, I don't know. How much does it pay? And he threw out a number that I was like, oh, that's quite an attractive number compared to my buyer salary. So that was Monday. On Wednesday, I said, hey, I don't want to waste your time, but if you would even consider me, I'll apply for that job. He said, oh, yeah. Friday, I had an interview. When I got to work at 7:30 Monday morning, I had the you're being transferred letter. I go to my boss and go, oh, I'm switching departments. That was my origin. Learned about the opening on Monday, applied on Wednesday, interviewed on Friday, hired on Monday. So whirlwind. We had nothing, except for me being told, you're the ERAC. Go read TAC, Texas Administrative Code 213 is where it says you have to have an ERAC and talks about the rules of accessibility. TAC 206 is website accessibility. TAC 213 says the ERAC shall ensure compliance to the standards. That's our job. Hey, all of you that are state of Texas higher ed ERACs, your job is to ensure compliance. Okay, if you tell me I'm the hall monitor, I'm the hall monitor. You know, I want people to like me, but the bottom line, my job is to tell them you don't have any choice. This is not optional. So we started with a small committee, procurement, ISO, OIT, and the ERAC. And the ERAC is under OIT. And legal. And university compliance. And internal audit. And they weren't, for the most part, AVP levels. They were just mid-management level. We have to figure out how we're going to do this. So the very first thing we did was we started telling campus, if you are using EIR, you have to submit a ticket in ServiceNow. I'm not here to promote ServiceNow. That was just the ticketing system we had on campus at the time. It's still the ticketing system we have, so that's what we use. We came up with a form. What's it called? Adobe Acrobat or Microsoft Office 365 or Oracle, whatever, or Grammarly or Constant Contact, you know, whatever it is you're using that's EIR. We had to explain to people what EIR is. How much does it cost? Who's the vendor? What are you using it for? And who is using it? We want to know if it's for student use or employee use. We want to know how many people. All right. That's been the rule since February of 2019. They get a reminder email from the CIO every February. And every fall, it's in their employee compliance training. You have no choice. You have to submit this ticket. Now, originally, we really sold it as a one-stop shop. You submit this ticket, the accessibility review gets done, the OIT enterprise architecture review gets done. Do you need single sign-on? Do you need a server? Do you need help? And the ISO review gets done. Well, about 2 years ago, ISO divorced themselves from the process because it was too many tickets. Well, guess what? They want back in because it is a very well-established program. Yeah, of course, people hate it, but they do it. And that's what matters. They do it. It's 10 questions. It's not that big of a deal. Just do it. We're going to talk more about what that review looks like in a few minutes. That's no stupid questions.
We're like deep in the weeds of this, and you know, it is our messiest process, and I just and one of our consistently like the things that go wrong every single week is people don't know the name of their product. Right. And you know, so they ask us to look at this, but they actually mean that, right? And a month later, right now we're chasing down the wrong thing. Uh, Do, did you solve that in some way
No.
or no? Okay.
What I love is when you get the form and it has, the requester's name and the name of the resource and the name of the vendor, and has the same name in all three fields. And you're like, hey, you want to give us a quote? Yeah, at least we can see what the name is and the vendor name. But yeah, no, people don't know what they're using. Yeah, I'm sorry. That is the nature of the beast. People don't know. So that's where we started, submit a ticket. And the first 5 years, we've been pretty steady growth in that. Shortly after the ticket started, I started teaching monthly electronic accessibility classes. So I teach 4 classes every month. What is it? Intro to EIR accessibility. How do you make an accessible Word document? How do you make an accessible PowerPoint document? And how do you make an accessible fillable PDF form? If you're not going to put your form in Question Pro or mock forms, you have to come take this class. And usually they take the class and they go, oh yeah, we don't want to do that, because it's not that it's hard, but it's very time consuming, okay? We did that and we've been growing. But the great thing about that DOJ rule, and I know people have been poo-pooing it all over the nation, but for me, it's fantastic, because what it did was it got me in front of the president of the university. And what she said was, I want this fixed. You have until December 31st, 2025. Every webpage right, every course content in Canvas accessible. People are going to learn how to make electronic communications. We are going to serve our students. We are going to serve our potential students and their parents and our alumni and our employees, and we are going to be known as an accessible university. And we had better not get sued or someone's neck is on the line. Oh my gosh. And you know what? We are. And I've got some numbers to show you here in a little while. But I think I counted the other day, and I'm up to about 20 hours a week in meetings about that. We divided into the 4 different projects. Training and digital champions, we're going to talk about that. Website, identifying, remediating, mobile apps, identifying, remediating, and Canvas, which is our LMS. We migrated all of our websites, official uta.edu websites, from Cascade to Sitecore. Mostly, I think, I wasn't involved in those conversations because that happened the month I was hired. It was a way to force people to get into an accessible template and to update their content. Oh my gosh, some of that content was so old and so bad and so wrong and embarrassing. It forced departments to look and update their website. So we did that big migration, and we changed from Blackboard to Canvas. Now, mostly that was driven because it saved us a ton of money, but it gave us the opportunity to require faculty to use this syllabus template, to require that there be master shells that are accessible. And that was hard because I don't know if any of y'all deal with faculty or not, but some think their way's better. But we have been very fortunate with our leadership saying, no, this is what we're doing. This is your syllabus template. Now, for fall of this year, we are opening that up some to some multiple options for accessible syllabus templates. They've had one that they've been required to use, but we've had some bandwidth that we can give them some more options. But all of that has come because of our leadership directive, okay? It is not Laura out there doing a great job. Laura can't do any of this except the electronic document training. I am not a web developer. I can help you with SiteImprove, help you explain what the issue means, go through with you the examples of how to fix it, but I can't fix it, all right? I am really good at making people feel guilty and being a little bit of a nag. Okay. But honestly, most people, when you go and say, don't use UTA orange for text ever, but no, ever. You can never use UTA, put in any school you want except UT Austin. You cannot use that orange on a white background ever, ever, ever. It won't ever have sufficient color contrast, no matter what you do. You cannot use that color code. We actually had our marketing team come up with the official alternate orange, so that at least there's something on our website. They call it tomato orange, which they hate, but we can't not be accessible, right? So if you have inaccessible color branding stuff, if you can't change it, because it's all tied to copyright and trademark and all that stuff, you have to come up with some official alternate or secondary color palettes that you can tell people, we'll use this instead. Use this instead. Okay. It really has to be a culture. You know, the president published a 2030 strategic plan. And in that, we got 2 call outs on electronic accessibility. We are going to serve our students. We are going to be an accessible place to be, to live, to work, to learn. So really lean into that. This is absolutely the right thing to do. You know, I was in a class a minute ago and they were talking about we're all going to get old, right? We're all going to have things happen to us. So the statistic is that about 25% of the population has a disability. But this is my favorite statistic. It's estimated that 100%, and that's everyone in this room, will face at least a temporary disability at some point in their lives. Maybe you have cataract surgery, so you can't see for a while. Maybe you have an ear infection, so you can't hear. Maybe you're right-handed, your left hand is useless. You break it, it's in a cast. All of a sudden, keyboard controls become really important to you, right? And that's true. That's real life. Things happen. You have to take some medicine that makes your vision blurry, or you know, as we age, our eyes lose elasticity and we need higher contrast. That's all of us. Every day we get a little older. It is just so critically important to everyone. Think about the curb cuts in the sidewalks. Who's old enough to remember when they come through town and put the curb cuts in the sidewalks? Some of you? Okay. Did that help only people that are in wheelchairs? Nope. It helped old people with walkers. It helped little kids with walkers. It helped skateboarders, right? Even unintended benefits. Electronic accessibility is the same way. Captions on videos. Oh. Is anyone here from the state of Texas CPA office? Online? Anybody online? Okay. So to keep my certifications up, somehow it's like the perfect storm. They all came due last year. I had like 160 hours of continuing ed last year. And I was in a situation where I was on a time crunch for my procurement certifications to be renewed, had to get my continuing education hours in. My mom was sick, so I was sitting up with her in the hospital bed. And I'm like, you know, this is perfect. I can do my continuing ed. I didn't have any headphones. No problem. There will be captions. Oh, I'd start a video, no captions. Had to go find another one. Start a video, no captions. I needed captions, not because I have a hearing disability, but because of my environment, because of my circumstance. And that happens to people all the time. They leave their headphones behind, or the battery's dead, or whatever. Caption your videos. Caption them accurately with sentence capitalization and punctuation. Caption your videos. Okay. This is the 10 most important parts of having an EIR accessibility program, in my opinion. This is how we can show success at UT Arlington. Number 1 was the hardest. It took 3 years to get a signature that we published an EIR accessibility policy. Now, here's here's the interesting part of that. For those of you that are Texas state agencies, TAC, Texas Administrative Code 213 says, you shall publish a policy that includes the standards in this chapter. Okay, that's all we wanted to do, was publish a policy that repeated the minimum standards of that policy. We didn't want to repeat them, but we ended up having to. But that's all. We didn't ask for anything extra. And it took us 3 years. You know why? People don't wanna. They don't wanna follow the law. And I'm like, okay, let me follow your logic. Even though it's the law, as long as we don't publish a policy saying we have to follow the law, then we don't have to actually follow the law. For us, it took getting a new president. New president, boom, policy signed. We're going to be accessible. So I hate to say it, but leadership is critical. And if you don't have it, it's going to be really, really hard. It's not impossible, because we went along for several years growing from the bottom, right? Just simply getting people to care. And some people care a lot, which is great. But until we got that presidential leadership, I couldn't see the finish line. Now I can, which honestly, I didn't think would happen in my lifetime. Okay, I have a retirement date set for next year, June 30th. And I am optimistic that I'm going to be able to stand up at that retirement date and go, oh, you know, we did it today. Now, it's ongoing. Every time you get a new faculty member, every time you get a new course posted, every time you update a website, you still have to maintain accessibility. But UT Arlington is building a culture of accessibility. And it starts with getting your president to sign the policy. It's not like you have any choice. It's in the Texas Administrative Code. Okay, for those of you outside of Texas, I don't know. I don't know what your state laws say. But maybe you have a president publish a policy anyway. And basically what it says is we're going to meet WCAG, whatever the state requires us to do. So you're in, who's West Virginia? Okay, do you have a state requirement, WCAG version something? Nope. Okay. Okay, well, maybe your president does. Okay, so that's number one. You need a policy. I don't know what you hang your hat on other than just guilt without that. And guilt's a pretty strong motivator sometimes for people. Okay, but you still have to follow Title II of the ADA. Yeah, okay, so that's what you hang your hat on. It's still the law. Okay. Compliance training. It took me 5 years to get a blip on the compliance training. But we did. We revamped our whole compliance training, worked very closely with university compliance. It's a Canvas course. I mean, hours of work, and it was great. And sure enough, University Compliance got this little nasty gram from an employee saying, this isn't accessible, da, 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 da. And she sent it to me, and she was practically in tears. I felt so bad. I'm like, no, they're just wrong. Let me find out. You know, I'm so sorry you had a bad experience. Would you please tell me? The email I got back was, no, you need to follow universal design, blah, 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 blah. Well, I emailed this person's boss's boss and said, hey, we need a meeting because I need answers. You know, don't make me guess what's wrong. We will fix it. Well, this new employee had seen our Ally score and didn't understand that Ally scores inside of Canvas, it's a reporting tool, includes unpublished content. There was nothing wrong with the compliance training that person took. So it's important to be accessible, but it's also important to stand up when you know you're right and go, you know, if you have a problem, tell me, because being legally compliant does not mean you're going to be accessible to everyone all the time. And when someone says, I need help, you help them, right? You don't just say, no, we've met WCAG compliance, we're covered. No, but this person actually was just blowing smoke. So Annual compliance training tells everyone you are responsible for your emails. You are responsible for your PowerPoints, for your PDFs, for your website, for your Canvas course. Every employee is responsible. Now, if you don't know if you're accessible or not, take training or go to our training website. We just finished updating all new process guides and video tutorials for our campus. Unfortunately, they put it all under SharePoint. So it's not publicly out there, but I did get told I can share with anybody I want. So if you want our guide, I'll send them to you. The only one that's not finished yet is PDF remediation. Okay, so that's number 3, training programs and resource. We are partnering with our provost office and our Center for Distance Education office to create new training resources, toolkits, holding office hours on Teams. They're every Friday afternoon. Okay, I did not pick that date or time slot, but it's like Friday from 2 to 4 p.m. Anybody can come ask any question that they want. There are lots of good free training resources out there. There's lots of really bad free training resources out there. So be sure you know before you start sharing stuff with people. I'd be glad to send you my list of the ones that I vouch for, but I have paid for training and gone back to campus. I know how to do this, and I was wrong because they were wrong and I didn't know any better. So if you don't have a JAWS license, if there's any way for you to get one, I know they're expensive. Again, very fortunate to be at UT Arlington where they have an enterprise-wide license. Every employee, every student, free access to JAWS. So it does help you really confirm that your PowerPoint's good, your PDF's good, your web page is good. Okay, website accessibility reporting. What time do I have to stop talking? Oh, thank goodness, okay. I will try to let you out early though. Automated checkers don't check everything that need to be checked, but I think they're critical. I can't look at 50,000 web pages every week. So we have a vendor that we're using that crawls through 50,000 of our web pages. It's not all of our web pages, it's just all my budget will afford. So we have had to exclude large portions of our content, special collections from the library, athletics, because they have every baseball stat since the beginning of time, the school newspaper, right? Course catalogs that are more than 5 years old. None of that is included in our reporting. That's not great. It's just the world I live in. So let's get these 50,000 pages good and maintain and a system, and then we'll go worry about the next 50,000. Okay? So 13,000 pages are www.uta.edu. The rest are like faculty pages or lab pages or other stuff. It's amazing the stuff that people want to put out on the internet. As part of that effort, we partnered with the web hosting services team because we did not have centralized domain registration. Any department, any professor could go register any name they wanted and put it on their pro card, which is a credit card. That's a problem. Okay, I'm not a developer. I said that a moment ago, but there's this thing called Bootstrap, like where you can copy somebody's code and put it on your page, but that code may actually be pulling from someplace else or pointing to someplace else. We had a professor who bootstrapped something. The person they were taking it from kept emailing saying, stop it, stop it. Well, he finally just put porn on it so that when our people went to our website and they clicked on that thing, they saw porn. Okay, well, that professor wasn't even at our school anymore. Nobody knew how to get it was a thing. So all of a sudden, you know what? We have centralized website registration. It all goes through OIT. It is a disallowed pro card charge. But as a side effect, it also let our marketing team have input. So there's all these different approvals now. I get told, hey, put this in your vendor crawl service so we can get reports, right? And then I get to talk to them about web accessibility and what you need to check for and the things you need to manually check. So I think, my opinion, you got to have some sort of automated crawler. If you have tens of thousands of pages or hundreds of thousands of pages. It's also really beneficial because you pull up your website and you see 400 misspelled words and you think, oh, we are an institution of higher ed. Let's get that fixed. Okay. And maybe it's just people's names or something that they need to add to the dictionary. But it'll also tell you broken links. And when you pull it up and your giving link is broken, that's kind of information people would like to know. All right. Are there any questions online? No. Okay, thanks. Okay, electronic documents. This goes hand in hand with training. But if you as an employee at your organization receive an email that says, sign up for your health benefits, or look at your retirement package, or do your compliance training, if that communication is not accessible, you need to go tell somebody. Don't just keep that information to yourself. Is there anyone here from UT System? No? Okay, they know my name because I'm like the big old megaphone. Hey, you sent us this and it's not accessible. But they didn't send it to just me. They sent it to all 4,000 employees, right? So be the voice, be brave, be loud. The keynote speaker today, she said something along those effects of, speak up, stick your neck out. Okay, I got a call the other day and someone said, oh, Laura, the person everyone loves to hate. And it hurt my feelings. I didn't expect this. Like, it was like a bucket of cold water. I was like, oh, but it's not true. And people are tired of me saying, stop using orange and white. I should just, I've threatened to wear a big placard around campus that has the big line across orange and white. Don't do it. It is important to our coworkers. It is important to our students. It is important to student retention. It is important to your clients that you don't have yet. If they come to you for help and they can't even get to the help screen, are we all like nonprofit? Is any, Dale's not, but it's important. It's people's lives. And honestly, we're just being mean if we don't. So electronic documents, keep an eye out, speak up. If you don't know how to know if an electronic document is accessible or not, let me know. I'll send you the list. Course content. This is a higher ed thing. You have to have some way to track your faculty. They're not going to like it. Too bad. So in Texas, the faculty signs a contract to follow all state laws. Well, being accessible is a state law. Now, my employee and I were at Accessing Higher Ground in Colorado last year, and she was in a meeting where they were doing roundtable discussions, and this other person was like, well, at our school, it's in the faculty's contract that they are not required to be sure their stuff is accessible. And she's like, well, hope you have a remediation team because your school is responsible. And if you're not going to make the creator of that content responsible, then you're going to have a remediation team, which we do not. All faculty are responsible for their own course content. We have a question.
So we don't have that exactly. And we're in the middle of collective bargaining. So, we have that. And I was wondering if you have a difference between part-time faculty and full-time faculty, because
They're all responsible.
they're all responsible. Okay.
Now, if they are teaching, we have some master shell courses. So like 3 different faculty all teach freshman English. They're all teaching the same course in Canvas. Well, someone in that department is responsible. And then it's accessible for everyone. But no, every employee, full-time, part-time, student worker, you're responsible. Okay. Oh, I haven't been going through my slides. I've just been talking. I'm so sorry that was boring and you were just having to look at me. Okay. So your policy cannot require less than the law requires. There's no sense in having a policy unless you do. We talked about compliance training and our training program and web accessibility. And we just started finish talking about electronic documents. Social media. Join your social media channels for your agency or institution. And when you see something pop up, a video without captions or insufficient color contrast, take a little snapshot of it and email somebody on Monday morning and say, hey, I saw this weekend. Who's responsible? Someone's responsible. Someone posted it. We actually now have a social media person in our marketing team, and they are going to start auditing every social media account twice a year, which means departments have been told you have to register with us. You have to tell us what social media accounts you have, your Instagram, your X, your Facebook, your, I don't even know what they all are now, but we're not centralizing the posting on those sites, but you're going to tell us about it, and we're going to do audits twice a year. Okay. So yes, used to, when I was thinking about course accessibility, I really was intimidated about the math stuff. But honestly, that's solved. Our CDE folks, they are pros with the latex and the math type and yeah, I don't even know all the stuff, but that's not a problem. When we look at our 10 lowest Allied scores inside of Canvas, none of them are math or engineering. Number one is business law. Okay. So it's education, right? And it's making sure people know being accessible isn't hard. Creating an accessible Word document is pretty easy. And if it's accessible, you get all this other stuff, like you can have a table of contents and you can navigate by headings and all of these really great things. So every person that has a course in Canvas is responsible, whether they're tenured or part-time or whatever it is. The challenges the challenges we do not yet have a solution for. So if you have solved this, I need you to tell me, please, I'll get down on my knees and beg. Org charts. And there's a school that figured it out HTML and posted the code for everybody to grab. But we need an org chart solution that an administrative assistant can update. And maybe there's some way to pull that from an Excel file, or we don't have that solved yet, org charts. Number two, I'm gonna look at my list. Evacuation maps posted on our website. Because for that to work right, you really have to know the starting point, right? We're looking at a thing called Concept 3D and maybe wayfinding. And so maybe if you pulled it up on your phone, it could navigate you out of the building. But if there's an emergency, you need a lot more information than that. So we haven't solved that yet. And then the third one out of our top three is musical scores, PDFs that are on our music courses in Canvas. I'm thinking we're going to do a cover page, name, composer, date, why is this important? What are the instruments? What key is it in? What's the time signature? Here's a link to an audio recording. I'm the professor, contact me. I don't know. I haven't figured that out. So if you have a solution to that, let me know. Okay, so that's 6. So number 7, put out a pre-approved list. Our ServiceNow submission form is called a TAPREC. Don't use that. It's a horrible acronym. It just kind of evolved into that. But we have a TAP helper tool, which is a web app that you go to and you type in what you want, constant contact, it'll come up. You must submit a TAPREC. This is not an accessible resource. But you type in something that is accessible. It says, this was last reviewed on blah, blah, blah date. You do not need to submit a TAPREC. Okay. We have probably something like 3,000 items in this database, because every time we get a ticket, we put it in the database. About 300 are marked as being accessible. And that means we have a VPAT, it's been scored, and it's not older than 3 years old, the VPAT. And then internally, we go back and rescore those every 3 years, make sure we have a new VPAT and it still passes, okay? We are working on trying to come up with a list, like a classroom list of resources. You know, for a survey, use Question Pro. For a email, use Microsoft Outlook. For online meetings, use Teams. But they keep wanting to throw other things in. And I'm like, don't put Canva on that. Don't put Constant Contact on that, right? You need a plan. Yes. Question?
Just for the VPATs, like, are you just checking that they've filled it in, or do you do any verification to make sure that it's accurate?
It depends. If it's something that's going to be used by 50 or fewer people a year, and it makes sense, we'll just trust it. Currently, we have over 100 requests in our queue, and there's just the 2 of us, so we don't verify every VPAT. But if it's something that's going to be widely used, we will ask for, you know, sandbox access or trial access or something like that, and just spot check things to make sure that it makes sense. She also has a question. That's unfortunate, but that's just real life for us.
We are also in a joint partnership with our security and server folks. We have been looking at HECVAT 4.
Mhm.
Are you all, you're not?
Does it list all of the WCAG criteria?
So it doesn't do all but it includes a VPAT in it. So VPAT
Oh.
is one of the things, but it asks more than what the VPAT asks. So we find it's like VPAT plus for us.
Yeah, as long as it gives me all the VPAT stuff, I would be fine with that. And
Yeah.
I'll look into that. HECVAT 4, you said?
HECVAT 4, it's new. It came up.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the last time I looked at the HECVAT, it didn't have enough detail for me. Okay. And so many people use HECVAT Lite. I'm like, no, that won't do it. Okay, so what do we do when we get that ticket submission, right? Here's our process. And I'll tell you right up front, it's not perfect, okay? But there's 2 of us, and we process just over 300 a month. I'm sorry, that's not right. 300 a quarter. And it's becoming more complicated. I'll get to that in just a second. First thing we do when we get a request is we try to get a VPAT. We go online, we look at their website. If we can download it, we score the VPAT. If we can't get it online, we email them and ask for it. I'm so tired of vendors saying, no one's ever asked for this before. You know, I just want to reach out to all of you and go, that's for the VPAT. But you know, there are some places, Dell, HP, Oracle, that they just have them online. Apple, Microsoft, you go get the one that you need. We wait 2 days if we had to ask for the VPAT, and we ask again. So we don't just one and done. But if we can't get if we get the VPAT, we score it, it passes, we approve it, we add it to our pre-approved list, done. But if we can't get a VPAT, or if it fails, we look to see if this is something we are buying under a UT Arlington purchase order, because it has an EIR accessibility warranty clause that roughly says, if we tell you this is not compliant, this is an accessibility issue, you will fix it or you will give us our money back. But if that is going to be negotiated out of the contract, which hopefully we wouldn't buy it then, or maybe it's something that's free. There is no purchase order. There's something they're buying a credit card. There is no contract. Then we don't use PO as approval, obviously. So we look at qualified approval. We almost never use qualified approval, but for us, what that means is that the user population has somehow already been pre-qualified. We bought software that was going to run on laptops inside police vehicles. So it's only going to be used by on-duty police officers. Okay, well, that's a pre-qualified population. So we're okay with a approving that request for that software because it's unlikely that we're going to be exposing the university to any risk or failing to serve those employees. Then we have a blanket exception form and two types of department exception forms. EAE, it used to be called EEAAP. It always reminded me of AARP, but anyway, an EAE is an EIR accessibility exception form. Our president allows us to apply a blanket approval that she signed when the resource costs less than $25,000 a year, and it's used by 50 or fewer employees a year, and or 50 or fewer students a year. That's not a semester, that's a year. So roughly 12 kids a semester. Maybe it's a doctoral program. It's a very small part of the population. And with those small classes, the professor should be keenly aware of the students' abilities or disabilities and be able to accommodate them. So those blanket approvals used to be good for 2 years. But in December, this past December, we started making them expire this coming December because we've got that new DOJ rule. And that we weren't sure how we were going to live with our blanket exception process under the new rule. Well, we had our actor meeting. For those, that's a UT system requirement to have an actor meeting, that a committee that looks at all of the exception forms every quarter. And we have elected to continue that blanket approval process even under the new DOJ rule. But we think that it is an acceptable risk and it's unlikely to cause a burden to our students or employees. Now, of course, if someone says, hey, this isn't acceptable, then we're going to have to come up with accommodations or stop using it. Okay. But let's say it costs $25,001, or it's going to be used by 51 people a year, then we have to move to a department exception form. That means a dean or a vice president has to sign it saying, yep, we know this is not accessible. But DOJ puts this into a new world. Previously, any dean or VP could sign any exception form and we were forced to allow them to use it. But under DOJ, our legal counsel tells us we can only allow that if they can prove fundamental alteration or minimal impact. I want to clarify what the minimal impact means. It does not mean a small number of users. What it means is that the impact to someone with disabilities versus someone without disabilities is minimal. So if I have disabilities and he does not, and we're both using this software, our experience is equally bad. There's basically no difference. Okay, that's what they mean by minimal impact. Yes.
Are you using a best meets exception in this framework? Because that's usually the one that I've heard of. Okay.
I think for us, that's going to have to fall under fundamental alterations. But here's the change for us is we are not, the EIR accessibility team is not making that call. Legal is making that call. And that's what has slowed us down tremendously getting things churned through, because legal is forcing us to go back to the requester. There's like 10 more questions, because what they're looking for is, can I stand up in a court of law and defend the argument that this would be a fundamental alteration if we don't use this resource? And sometimes the answer is yes. We will lose our accreditation. Our students will not be prepared for the workforce. We will fail our students to be able to get this certification. Yes, that is a fundamental alteration. The fact that you want to use Canva because it makes cool graphics is not a fundamental alteration argument. The answer is no. If you want to use DocuSign instead of Adobe Sign, the answer is no. And by the way, we have an enterprise-wide license for Adobe Sign, so we're saving you $4,000. That answer your question?
Yeah, I think we do.
Okay.
Our council said.
we can't almost ever defend fundamental alteration, or what's the other one? Undue burden. And so we really only look at best meets. So we look at a product category, and if there isn't, like for Canva, if there wasn't anything in that product category that was accessible, we can look at the best meets within that product category. So I think we might be arriving at like the same answer, but with a different like legal justification. Yeah.
So now when we process EAEs, it only applies to DOJ if it's web-based or a mobile app. So if it's Canva is a mobile app. If it's software that you download on your computer, that's outside of scope for DOJ. That's just where we had to meet with the Texas requirements, which then we can go ahead and sign without claiming fundamental alteration. Okay. I know we don't have time to get into all the nitty-gritty about that. If you ever want to talk about it, let me know. Procurement is critical to the process. Originally, we put the buyers in the position of being the policeman and holding up the stop sign. Nope, you cannot buy this until you have your ticket approved, right? Well, about a year ago, we finally got into the procurement system. And once a requisition is approved by the department, it comes to us. Not all requisitions, it's by a GL account code. So anything that's software, computers, things like that, they come through our queue and we verify, yes, we have a tap rec for this. Yes, this is under PO. This is fine. You're good to go. We approve and they go on. So procurement's very happy that they are no longer having to be the policeman for tickets. We get copies of the ProCard reports on a monthly basis. And there's a process for employee reimbursement where they reach out to us. Okay, the last one is digital signage. You probably have digital signage at your location. Maybe it's parking lot signs, maybe they're TV displays in the lobby. Watch those as you walk by. Do they have sufficient color contrast? Can you stop and read the text at a reasonable speed before it disappears? Did you get through all of it? Text density is important. Digital signage, the size of the letters, you apply the ADA physical signage requirements, which is 1 inch of height for every 10 feet of viewing space. So be sure the letters, the font is large enough. And then of course your sporting arenas and your stadiums and things, be sure you don't have things that are flashing faster than 3 times a second, because that can send people into epileptic seizures, and then the color contrast and size. Okay. I am going to stop talking just a moment. Use an accessibility lens, right? Everything you do, everything you send, everything you receive, is it accessible? Who am I leaving out if I let this go on, right? If you're at a university or a research lab, how is accessibility impacting that research? If they say, sign up for this research, you're colorblind, can't, you're literally skewing your research. And you may not even realize that. I mean, if you're doing it on purpose, then say, this excludes anyone who can see red, green, or whatever it is. It's important. It's important for your researchers to understand if they're skewing their data or not. Okay. Habit. It really has to be habit. Being accessible when it comes to websites, documents, videos, social media, it's really not that hard. You may have to learn what that means. You may have to develop new good habits, best practices. But once you do that, it's really not that hard. It's just a new normal. So we've got to get everybody into that boat of living in the new normal. So this is how we are doing on the 50,000 pages that we are reporting. We started off reporting on 31 sites and had an site report for 5. End of Q1, we were at 88.9 on 368 sites. As of yesterday, we were at 95.0, and I believe the number of sites was 441. So we've got to be at a 100. We have our score reading at WCAG 2.1 AA. When we hit 100, that means we have reached minimum compliance with the automated checks. I know there's a lot of manual checks that need to be done. But for right now, today, this is what we're trying to get to a 100. And we will by December 31st. Anyone who's not goes on the naughty list and will be meeting with me and their dean or their vice president, because by April, they're going to either be compliant or, I hope, brought down. Now, that's not my call. But really, by then we will be so close. Do you really want to be the one person that's keeping us from saying we've done it, right? Okay. Also, by that same date, our course content is going to be compliant. We are about, like today, I got the green light just a few minutes ago. We are going to have every business unit will have a digital champion in their unit. We've divided campus up into 24 business units. A digital champion is not a remediator. That's not what this is. This is a person who will look at your website reports, who will look at your course content accessibility reports and communicate with leadership. Here's how we're doing. Yes, we're going to get there. Or we've got a problem faculty member, right? Or a department. But they will also be a cheerleader, right? I'm a firm believer. I know we have the carrot and the stick. And we really want the carrot. We want everyone to want to be accessible. The stick is for later. I'm telling the champions, okay, you're the carrot, I'm the twig, and legal is the stick. I'm with this whole DOJ thing, I'm not the stick anymore. They are, and they're driving that boat. They'll know where all the resources are. They'll know how to check a website for accessibility, how to check a document for accessibility, and where to send people for help. And then my new website got launched last month with those resources. Okay. We are doing it. You can too. There's nothing special about me. You can do this. And I hope that if you don't take anything else away from this session, that's what I want you to know is your agency, your school, your company can do this. And you just have to take that first step. You know, go out and build your coalition, your procurement, your ISO, your OIT, whoever, and start. You're never going to get there unless you start. And it's okay if you're not there by December 31st, but you want to get there eventually. So start. Okay. That's my session. I see a few questions.
I'm just curious about what the consequences are for not being accessible for like legally, I guess, in the state and then maybe within your organization.
There are a couple of different risks for not being accessible. So number one, for us, you lose students, which means you lose enrollment, which means you lose money, and maybe you lose jobs. So that's number one. Number two is for us state agencies or federal agencies, you can have an Office of Civil Rights complaint filed against you. That could come either through the Department of Justice or through the Department of Education. Right now, that's unlikely to have any action taken on it, which then means you can be actually sued. The Harvard case, they actually made that a class action suit on the captions for their videos not being captioned, but it could just be one-offs. Back in 2018, the same month I started this job, there was a person in New York State who's blind, and he got mad because he couldn't register for a college class somewhere, I don't know where. Well, he decided he was going to set an example, and he sued a university in every state, 50 lawsuits. I don't know the logic, but he only went after private institutions. So in Texas, it was SMU. But because it was private, the settlement was private, and I don't know how much they had to pay. But yeah, there's financial risk, reputational risk, loss of income, jobs. Does that answer your question? Were there any online questions?
I have a question.
Oh, just one second.
Do this one first.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We have one question in chat and then we'll do voice questions from Zoom. So the question is, how do you hold your third-party vendors accountable to provide accessible product if they said they will but don't follow through?
Okay, so they say they're accessible or they say they're going to be accessible. So when we approve something under an exception form, right now it's expiring December 31st because of the whole DOJ thing. So we're going to come back in December 31st. And if they have failed to become accessible, if we can't prove a fundamental alteration claim, I don't think legal will allow us to continue to do business with them. Okay. Who had the question on? Oh, I'm sorry.
Audible.
It was online.
No, it was a Zoom person talking to the speakers.
For that question over the Zoom, you guys can speak.
Yeah, I can come off mute. Thank you. So my question is, do you currently have a process for RFPs and bids that come in when needing to procure new IT tools?
Yes.
Is there accessibility sort of checks embedded into that process besides maybe the VPAT?
So we have two versions of that. We have invitations to bid, which is one set of procurement buyers, and then RFPs, which we call our contract specialists. It's another set of buyers. So for the invitations to bid, our bid documents and our PO require the VPAT, plus that PO is created by a requisition, and my team approves requisition. So we don't approve that requisition unless we have the ticket and we've completed the accessibility review. For RFPs, those are a little bit of a different animal. So I meet with the RFP team monthly and we review what's out for bid and what's going to require the review and when is the appropriate time. Because if you get 12 submissions, do we really want to look at all 12? Probably not. So maybe after the first grading, then we come in. But we really do those on a case-by-case basis. Does that help?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Yes. Yes.
This way.
I have a question kind of about not so much your policy, because obviously that's in your hoop, right? Speaking UT terms, but how you kind of built maybe more than just the culture around the documents and sort of assigning ownership to things. So we've recently, I'm in a certain department at UT in Houston, and we've recently implemented product management on our large products, but looking towards setting up an accessibility setup for our department. I'm thinking about maybe doing something, a similar model around product management around all of the many online courses, PDFs, various things that we have. So I'm just kind of interested how y'all kind of tackled that and how you got buy-in outside of your leadership, which I think is critical. And I do think I have, but just kind of interested in sort of some of that.
So for PDFs, if you are purchasing those PDFs, they should come from the vendor as accessible. And if not, I do help that department have that conversation with the vendor about, well, what does that mean, right? What are we looking for PDF accessibility? For resources, that comes back to that submission that they did before it was ever bought, right? Let's do the accessibility review. If it's accessible, you're good to go. If we bought it under PO, it's only, the approval is only good for the term of that PO. And part of the state of Texas requirement is that you still have to show improvement. You can't just have the same approval year after year after year after year if the score is an F every time. You have to say, okay, tell me one thing you're going to fix And then when you document the exception the next year, you should be able to say, okay, they fixed this and now they're going to fix this. But these conversations are new and they take time. Again, I'm a team of 2. It's hard. It is hard, but I'm so sorry. I don't know what that is. Okay, it's my watch. I'm so sorry. I'm really happy when I do a table every quarter that says, here's how long it took us to approve the request. And the last line is 30+ days. And there's a column for approved as accessible. And in Q2, that number was 5. And that's the best number on the chart because that means that department waited until that vendor fixed their stuff so that we could approve it as accessible instead of having to approve it under exception forms. And the more we talk about it at campus, the more we have departments stepping up and saying, I've already talked to the vendor. Now, talk to your network. Because we had a vendor demo where they were demoing this new student tracking, whatever, and it was built in like Moodle or something that I don't know what it is, and none of it was accessible. And I'm like, look, none of this is accessible. And he's like, well, we're very happy with this. We just built it. We've invested. And, I'm like, oh, and I'm looking at the department. They're like, oh yeah, no. And the vendor's like, well, these other UT schools are going to use us. Okay, so I sent my counterparts all, hey, y'all, what are you doing? And you know what? By the end of the next day, that vendor wrote back and said, yeah, we're going to fix it. They're going to have to redesign it. But literally every school in the nation has the same requirement. It just kind of drives me crazy when vendors are like, and now I don't know if I answered your question or not. Okay.
We have things we purchase, but it's also things that are created by our own staff.
Mhm.
And so I think this is, I took some really good notes, I think, to really think about how we can just make sure we've got ownership over things, because I don't want my team becoming the remediation team. And
Right.
that's, I think.
Oh.
By the way, anybody who's using Canva, we just switched to Adobe Express, which is just like Canva, but has far better accessibility features. So check that out if you haven't, especially if your team's already using Creative Cloud.
Right. We already have the license.
Yeah.
We're trying to look at Vengage. Has anybody looked at Vengage for accessible PDF creation? So we're about to start a trial. Yeah, but yes. Mhm. But Adobe Express does. Mhm. Oh. Okay. I apologize for going over. Thank you. Thank you all very much.